welcome to class. Today we are going to talk about a very important and well discussed concept in language policy of India, which is referred to as three language formula. In continuation to our discussions on official languages of India and the eighth schedule of the Constitution of India, three language formula is equally important topic and we are going to deal with it today. Deciding on a national language or an official language post independent India was an uphill task to the Constituent Assembly, which was supposed to draft the constitution of newly independent India. After long discussions and debates and deliberations of more than 2.5 years, we adopted our constitution on 26th January 1950. And a very well debated and deliberated upon topic, which was official languages of India, came into force. And if you look at part 17 from chapter 1 to 4, covering articles 343 to 351, that entire section of the Constitution of India is dedicated to the issues of languages, various issues of languages, recognizing them, mandating them for use in different official purposes at central and state levels. So, in the Constitution Assembly, Hindi was voted as the official language of the Union, and it also gave states the liberty to independently decide their official languages for local governance. However, it provided that the use of English language would continue for the next 15 years from the date of enforcement of the Constitution of India on 26 January 1950 to 15 years of period that was supposed to end on 25th January 1965. The Constitution also asked the government to appoint a commission at the end of 5 and 10 years, respectively, to make recommendations with regards to progressive use of Hindi as language pan India. So, this was the provision with which we started in 1950 on 26th January. So, our constitution came into force and we adopted our constitution on 26th January 1950. And as I told you that the question of language, so-called national language, and then finally Hindi being adapted as the official language of the center in Devanagari script was a long uphill task. And we have witnessed uh, a long debate and a very elaborate deliberations on the issue. But finally, Hindi was declared as official language in Devanagari script and English as an associate official language for the period of 15 years. And it was believed that during this period of 15 years, window period of 15 years, Hindi will emerge as a lingua franca pan India and it will have a wider acceptability fueled by initiatives by government organizations, government, and other organizations. And it did not happen that way, the way it was perceived in 1950. So, constitution that had dedicated articles in part 17 from pages 212 to 217, uh, from article 343 to 351, which are dedicated to the matters of official languages and the idea that English will continue for coming 15 years and then gradually be replaced by Hindi. But it did not happen that way. At the end of, almost as the end was nearing, as the end of this 15 years window period was nearing, we saw a widespread protest in the southern states and non Hindi speaking states, particularly that started in Madras, then erstwhile Madras Presidency, against promotion and imposition in courts of Hindi language. And these protests were so widespread, and Hindi was, you know, portrayed as a language of hegemony and imposition on the non-Hindi speaking states, and the protest was so widespread that the government of India had to convene a special session of the parliament, and in 1963, under the mounting pressure from this continued protest, the Official Language Act was passed and it was enacted. So, under the mounting pressure of protests across non-Hindi speaking states, Government of India had to convene a joint session of Parliament in 1963, 2 years before this window period was supposed to end, and pass the act called the Official Language Act. So, this Official Language Act allowed English to continue sine die till further orders. So, this period did not end in 1965 on 25th January as it was destined to end. And as we are speaking today in 2021, it continues. So, this is how English continues to be associate official language of India. So, the section 3.2 of the Official Language Act 1963, which was amended again in 1967, provides for continuing the use of English in official work even after 25th January 1965. The Act also lays down that both Hindi and English shall compulsorily be used for certain specified purposes such as resolutions in the House, general orders by the government, rules, notifications, administrative and other reports, press communiques, administrative and other reports in both the houses of the parliament, all kinds of contracts, agreements, licenses, permits, tenders, notices, and other forms of tenders. They all are supposed to be, produced and executed in both the languages. So this is how we operate. Now, given the fact that India is a multilingual country, it has four major language families, and it is also discussed about the fifth language family, the Andamanese. Indo-Aryan language family is the largest language family, almost covering 70% of the population that speaks languages from Indo-Aryan language family. Then we have another major family, the Dravidian languages family, concentrated around the southern part of the country. Then we have Austro-Asiatic languages scattered in the central Indian part, and then one or two regions in northeast part of India, and then Tibeto-Burma language families. Such a diverse country with so many languages. And in fact, if you go by the figures of 2011 census of India, more than 15,569, I guess, if I'm not wrong, but definitely more than 15,000 varieties have been returned as mother tongue, out of which, with uh, you know uh, different classifications and grouping and organizations, government comes up with 121 languages. So that's a linguistic diversity of the country. In such a country, uh, you know deciding upon one official language will definitely be an uphill task. It is an uphill task. Until late, the questions on languages have not yet been settled. However, the Constitution of India gives us a lot of liberty and leverage to accommodate as many languages as possible. And if you look at Schedule 8 of the Indian Constitution, it lists 14 languages as official languages of India in 1950 at the time of enforcement of the Constitution. And today, as we talk, there are 22 languages, 8 have been added. And for now, more than 31 languages are in the queue, and demands are rising for inclusion as official language in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. The Constitution has a dedicated section, right, part 17, and from Article 343 to 351, exclusively discussing issues of language and language use. So in that way, Constitution of India gives us a lot of leverage, right, to decide upon languages for official use. If you look at, there are certain articles that we should be very particular about and we should be aware of. Article 29, for that matter, of the Constitution of India protects the interest of the minorities. So even if some languages which have lesser number of speakers, or the communities, or the that particular class of the society which has lesser number of speakers and small group of people, Constitution of India also protects their language rights and their interests, and it refers to in Article 29 of the Constitution of India. The article states that any section of the citizen who have distinct language, script, or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same. So lots of flexibility is there in our constitution. Of course, 343, as I've been telling you time and again and repeating it, is about the official language of Union of India. And according to this article, it is to be Hindi in Devanagari script, and numerals should follow the international form of Indian numerals. Article 346, for that matter, is about official language of the communication between states and the Union. Similarly, Article 347 gives the President the power to recognize a language as official language of a given state. So, when the state assemblies pass their resolutions, it comes to the President and he approves, and it is gazetted and notified. Such recognition can be for a part of the state or the whole state. So, depending on what kind of resolution has been adopted and sent. Similarly, Article 350, Section A facilitates for instruction in mother tongue at primary stage. So, from here we are turning towards the three language formula. We'll move to that very soon. Article 350B provides for the establishment of a special officer for linguistic minorities in order to protect their language and their scripts. The literature scripts everything. The officer shall be appointed by the president and shall investigate all matters relating to the safeguards for linguistic minorities, reporting directly to the president. So, no political mediation in between and intervention in between. So, this is how the Constitution of India safeguards the rights of the minority community and rights of the smaller sections of the society and the country. The President may then place the reports before each house of the Parliament or send them to the governments of the states concerned. Article 351 gives power to the Union government to issue a directive for the development of Hindi language. And the 8th schedule, as we discussed, lists more than 22 languages so far to be used and are being used as official languages in the Constitution of India. Now, from where this three language formula emerges, what is the need for that? So, if you look at the protests that started in 1963, created a serious concern about the unity and integrity of the Union of States in India, and the question of language identity and politics came to the forefront of all policy making and framework development. And in that sense, as part of the language policy and planning, the Kothari Commission was constituted. The Kothari Commission was formed on 14th July 1964. On 29th June 1966, the commission was dissolved after the purpose was achieved, objectives were achieved. The commission submitted recommendations. It was formed under the then chairman of the University Grants Commission, Mr. Daulat Singh Kothari, and that is why this commission is called Kothari Commission. So, Daulat Singh Kothari was chairman of the University Grants Commission. It was the first commission mandated to comprehensively deal with the education policy of independent India. You can recall 1835, the great Macaulay Minutes that shaped the framework for education in India pre-independence, and Wood's Dispatch that established the role and significance of English in Indian education system. So right from 1835 and then followed by Wood's Dispatch, lots of commissions were formed intermittently, but the Kothari Commission was the sixth commission, and post-independent India, it was given this mandate to come up with a very comprehensive framework regarding language and education. It did not only concentrate on language, but it did make a lot of contribution and gave a wider framework in terms of language policy and education. So, this is called Kothari Commission, and the reports are available uh, online. You can just Google it and find the entire recommendation of Kothari Commission if you are interested to understand the language policy. And that long report contains a particular section dedicated to language and primary education, right? This also forms a part of acquisition planning and corpus planning. So the recommendations of Kothari Commission is that's why very important. So recommendations regarding languages. The Commission recommended adopting a three-language formula at state level, and from there, from the Kothari Commission recommendation, this three-language formula comes into discussion, and this terminology that is used three language formula or trilingual formula. Somewhere you can find trilingual formula. Both are the same, that originates in Kothari Commission report. And it intended to promote a language of the southern states in the Hindi speaking states and vice versa. So, in order to build consensus on national integrity and minimize the apprehensions of non Hindi states, this recommendation was very important. It intended to promote Hindi, English, and a regional language in non Hindi speaking states. The Kothari Commission recommended promoting regional languages, Sanskrit, as well as an international language, preferably English. So, three language trilingual, packaging of languages at school level. This is how this phrase three language formula or trilingual formula comes into discussion. So, what is that three language formula? It's a long section in the Kothari Commission report, but we will quickly look at a few salient important points. So, a very important point, one of the important points, salient points of this recommendation in three language formula was the teaching system across various regions in the country was not uniform. So, this report of this commission tried to formalize and develop a kind of uniformity across the country for primary education. Whereas Hindi was general medium of instruction in North, regional languages and English were the media of instruction in other parts of the country. This led to chaos and created difficulties for interstate communications. Therefore, in order to you know draw uniformity in the system, in 1968, new education policy derived a middle path, and in that this three language formula was a very important factor. So, in Hindi states, the formula translated into learning Hindi, English, and a modern Indian language, and preferably southern language. So, language from south. So, in the north, Hindi, English, and the third language, any language from the south. For students in non-Hindi speaking states, it mandated lessons in Hindi, English, and the regional language. So, Hindi, English, and the regional language. And perhaps, whenever you travel, even to today, whenever you travel, you might have seen the notations on railway stations. If you look at across the window of your train, you can find name of the station in Hindi, English, and also in the local language script, right? Uh, but depending on which state has adopted what language as official language, apart from Hindi and English, you might find in UP for that matter, and Bihar, Urdu is the official language, right? In Delhi for that matter, Hindi, Urdu, English, and Gurumukhi, Punjabi. So, depending on which state assembly has adopted what language as official language, one of the official languages, and we have multiple multilingual official languages, multilingual official policies everywhere in the country. So, it's not monolingual. So, nowhere we get only Hindi or English or any one language. You usually get minimum three. In Delhi, for that matter, you have four. Punjabi is added one. So, the three functions which the three language formulas sought to serve were: number one, accommodating group identity, so minimizing the apprehension and fear of non-Hindi states, right? That Hindi will not be imposed, and in resonance with Article 29, the linguistic rights, culture, and heritage will be protected, right? So, this three language formula tried to subside such apprehensions, try to address such kind of apprehensions or any kind of linguistic hegemony and apprehension. So number one, it was accommodating group identity. Number two, affirming national unity. So mandating North Indian classrooms to have lessons and a particular language from South as a subject, and mandating non-Hindi states to have Hindi and any other language from across the country as a third language, was conceived to protect and integrate national unity. Third, the third point is increasing administrative efficiency, right? So the documents, the everyday businesses could be carried out in the regional local language and accessible to wider population in that particular region. So this is what are the implicit functions and of the three language formula. Incidentally, another commission was formed, and NPE, right, 1986. So one was in 1968, this is 1986. It made no changes in the 68 policy of this three language formula, and it continued. Uh, because state has the education as a subject, education is a state subject, it is the primary responsibility of the states that the policy is implemented effectively in its true spirit. However, only few states adopted the formula in principle. In many of the Hindi speaking states, Sanskrit became the third language instead of any modern Indian language from southern part, and it in some way defeated the purpose of three language formula, and this defeated the purpose and the whole idea to promote interstate communication, right? Because by default Sanskrit appeared to be the third language, so Hindi, English and Sanskrit in North Indian schools, right? In non-Hindi speaking states such as Tamil Nadu, a two-language formula was adopted. Tamil Nadu Assembly rejected the three-language formula, and a two-language formula was adopted, where you have Tamil and English as official languages. Now we have National Education Policy 2020. What about NEP 2020 and three-language formula? Uh, we hardly find major departure from 1968 to 1986 and now to 2020. Trilingual formula or three-lingual formula continues, but in 2020, a little more flexibility has been added. So, the salient points of NEP 2020 we can summarize as wherever possible. So, that's the flexibility that NEP 2020 gives. It says wherever possible, it doesn't mandate. So, wherever possible, the medium of instruction until at least grade 5 should be in mother tongue, lessons in mother tongue, but preferably till grade 8 and beyond will be the home language or mother tongue, local language or regional language. So, primary education in mother tongue or any local language, and it is mandatory till 5, it can go beyond till 8, and then the students can continue learning and studying that language and literature beyond grade 8 as a subject. Number 2, the three language formula will continue to be implemented while keeping in mind the need to promote multilingualism as well as promote national unity. So, hardly any departure here. NEP also stated that there will be a greater flexibility in three language formula and no language will be imposed on any state. So, perhaps first time this National Education Policy 2020 declares no imposition of Hindi. So the apprehension and the fear of non-Hindi state about hegemony of Hindi and about Hindi being imposed on them is addressed in this policy. And the three languages learned by child will be the choices of the state, regions, and of course the student themselves, so long as at least two of the three languages are native of India. So out of three, one will be uh, you know foreign language, and it is majorly English all the places, and two languages should be native to India, Indian languages. So this whole discourse on three language continues right from the beginning, and it mandates states, because education is a state subject. The policy has to be implemented by the states, but NEP 2020 gives greater flexibility to the states to work upon, have an action plan, and implement it effectively. The three language formula basically was a mediated, negotiated position taken by the Government of India, recommended by Kothari Commission, and subsequent education policies, where three languages were mandated. States were given, and Constitution of India gives the states to decide on their official language, and we see non-Hindi states like Gujarat. So Gujarati is the third official language there. Let's say Punjabi is the third language, uh, official language there. In Bengal, Bangla. In Tamil Nadu, Tamil. In you know Andhra, Andhra Pradesh, it is Telugu. In Kannada is in Karnataka, and Malayalam in Kerala, Assamese in Assam, and so on and so forth. So that's the story of three language formula. And the good thing is that Constitution of India gives us a lot of flexibility and leverage to be multilingual. It promotes multilingualism, and subsequent education policies have taken and towing the same line. And this is how this statutory provisions in Constitution makes it mandatory for any government to maintain the multilingual fabric of the country. Article 29 gives us right to preserve our language, culture, heritage, and scripts, and it is up to the government of the states to adopt more than one language or languages as official language. So we will continue talking about language policy and planning in India in our next video. For now, this is it, and in case you have questions, post it in the forum. Thank you very much.